The Call continues from generation to generation with Don Gessner from Gessner Ministries, a podcast dedicated to exploring the uniqueness of a person's call to ministry.
I'm very happy to have Brayden Fuoss on the podcast today. The interesting thing about this is that, Brayden, I just met you for the first time maybe 3 weeks ago, and that was at a wedding where our lead pastor here at Westside, his daughter was getting married, and you were part of that bridal party. Mm-hmm. And so, but here's the deal. I was observing a lot of the young people that were part of that party that day, and you really stood out to me. And then we had a conversation, and I was just very impressed with the maturity that I felt and sensed from you. And I'm not minimizing youth by any means. I was impressed by all of that. So, but it's really great to have you today. Thanks for taking time to share about the call with me today.
It's an honor. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So before we get started though, Brayden, why don't you share with the viewers, share with them, tell me a little bit about you. You can start as young as you want and just go up through your present time, what you're doing today.
Yeah, for sure. So originally from Illinois, grew up in a really, really small town in central Illinois, about 1,000 people. And I kind of make the joke, we had a Dollar General and a Casey's, and that was it. So very, very small town living, and went to a high school of about, 500 people and really lived in the same area my whole life.
Wow.
Grew up kind of playing basketball and that sort of thing, but it wasn't a whole lot to do in a small town. Besides in high school, we'd drive around or whatever. But
sure,
not you kind of have to get creative with what you did. Grew up in the same place, Chatsworth, Illinois. Grew up.
Do you have
really,
brothers or sisters?
Yeah, one brother. We adopted him from South Korea, and he's 20 years old now. We adopted him when he was 5 months old, and so Beautiful. He has no memory of South Korea or anything like that. But so his name's Braxton, and he's actually a student at Olivet studying accounting. So he got the math brain. I did not. That was not my strong suit. But anyway, so just one brother. He's at Olivet, and but grew up going to church my whole life. My parents were and are, I should say, believers, and so we were in church every single Sunday. That was just always a priority in our house growing up, and attending church and serving and just being really involved. And so that was instilled in me from a young age.
Sure.
And so that's kind of my upbringing in a way. But went to Olivet and graduated from there in 2024. Studied to be a pastor. Pastoral ministry was my major, and while I was there, I was in Preaching Ambassadors, which is a program that you got to travel to different churches across the Midwest. Really, it was Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, Illinois. I might have missed a state in there somewhere, but across the Midwest, essentially. And you'd get an opportunity to preach on a Sunday morning at church, and so that was really cool. Now that's obviously the Church of the Nazarene. Did not grow up Church of the Nazarene. I'm at a non-denominational church right now, but it was so cool just getting to travel and meet different pastors within the Nazarene Church and hear their stories and how they got involved in ministry and their journey and just seeing the different church dynamics too was super, super cool. So I did that all 4 years. I took the last semester of my senior year off from doing Preaching Ambassador, but from the moment I came in, freshman year, I had joined and went through the process of that. So that was that program was incredible, for my overall just growth and
Yeah.
being able to connect with people and just hone my like preaching skills too and communicating. So that was definitely just a gift, I think, to be able to do something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, Brayden, because the podcast is centered around the call.
Yeah.
And while I've interviewed now a number of people over these many months, we're coming up on a year pretty soon, and we've done one every week. And I've tried to, really branch out and do a lot of different people and different age categories. And so I'm very pleased to have a younger person who is just in the beginning years of his ministry.
Yeah.
And I'm very interested in knowing how it is that how you felt that God called you into ministry.
Yeah, yeah. This is something I love talking about. It's something that doesn't really get old, to be honest, because it's like reflecting just on like the faithfulness of God and like how
Yes.
He's brought me to this point. So, it's interesting, Pastor Don. Was always kind of drawn to the job of the pastor. I don't know why that was, but like I remember, I think I was around 4 or 5 years old, and I would, most kids are like dressing up as like police officers or,
Yeah.
firefighters playing like, and I probably did that too. But I remember dressing up as a pastor in my living room, and I would have like my parents' Bible, and I would get up in front of my mom and my dad and maybe my grandma if she's over or something, and I would preach a message. I don't know if it was theologically sound or not, but
That is so cool. I love that.
yeah. So like it's just cool like how the Lord like almost put that desire in my heart from an early age. And I was
Absolutely.
like, oh, that I'm drawn to that. And
Yeah.
so then moving forward, like I remember in like second grade, kind of telling my pastor of my church at the time, I was like, kind of my interest in it and all that stuff, and he allowed me to actually get up on the platform and preach a little message with him,
Oh my.
which is so funny. Like even on, I think it was on. Obeying your parents or something like that. So he was kind of like asking me questions or whatever. So I was always kind of drawn to that. And then, through middle school, high school, there was this period where I wasn't walking like super close with the Lord, like had to outright turn my back on him.
Right.
But it was sort of difficult because I didn't have a lot of friends in that time period who followed Jesus, who were close with Jesus, and so I was on, in middle school, I was on the basketball team, and there was this desire to kind of blend in.
Yes.
I didn't really care about, being following Jesus or being vocal about that. Although I would
Sure.
say I was a Christian, but I wasn't on fire. I
Absolutely.
was lukewarm at best, and just kind of blending in. And that was like that through high school. And I remember I would go to church camp. I would come down here to Tennessee because I actually have family in Middle Tennessee, and I would go to their church camp with my cousins, and just would meet the Lord. I remember year after year, I would meet the Lord, and just this, they call it the camp high.
Yes, of
And
course.
right, the camp high. And
Yeah.
so that's what happened. I would meet the Lord, and then I would go back to my friends back home and just kind of start just blending in. It wasn't really a distinction. And so that was like that for several summers. And I remember this was right after the death of Billy Graham. Billy Graham is
Oh
just
yes.
someone I look up to, and always kind of knew who he was. But it was after his death that I started to kind of look at his ministry and the life he lived. And I knew he was a good man. I knew he was a great preacher, but
Yes.
I didn't know, too much about him. And
Right.
so I started to follow. I watched video after video of him preaching, but also just his ministry and stuff. And I was drawn to him. And I was like, I don't know why necessarily, but I'm just drawn to this guy. And I remember I was in a restaurant, and I was with my mom and my dad. It was right, and my brother, right after church, and we were like just talking. And I was telling my mom about it was like just a story related to Billy Graham, and we saw this lady who I'd known since I was a kid, and she comes over to our table. I haven't seen her in a while, and my background is a little bit more charismatic and people, operating in getting prophetic words or words of
Sure.
knowledge the scripture would talk about. And she had a word for me, and it was directly related to evangelism and the call of an evangel. And I said, I had never really even considered it. It was always kind of pastor, but it was almost like you're in the long run like called to evangelism. And I was like, whoa! I'm literally telling a story about Billy Graham, and she comes over. She has no idea what we're talking about, and she brings up evangelism. How I'm called to be an evangelist, and so that was like I call it like it was a marking moment for me
Yes.
where I'm like, oh my word, and I was still living lukewarm, like I at the time, like it.
Yeah.
And even beyond that, it was, just still blending in. But I was starting to tell people, I'm going to go into ministry, but my life it wasn't reflecting that. I wasn't like living a life that is set apart, that's like honoring and unto the Lord. And so, anyways, it comes the time about to go to college, and I thought I'm gonna go to Wheaton College. Like that's where I want to go. That's where Billy Graham went. If Billy Graham went there, that's good enough
Yes.
for me. And so, anyways, I applied there and thinking, man, I think I'm supposed to go here, and I did not get in. I didn't get accepted into that university. And I was like, initially, I was like crushed. I was like, oh my word, like
Yeah.
I thought this is where I was supposed to go. And so then beyond that, I ended up applying at Olivet. I lived only an hour away from Olivet, and so that's what I did, and I got accepted within just a few days. It was a quick process, maybe a week at most, and went there and studied, and so that's why when I brought up the preaching ambassadors, what an amazing program that was, because that's what I in the long run feel called to do, is be on the road and travel as a minister
Yeah.
and get to preach. And so that was like this, the kind of almost laying the foundation for me, like to be able to do that, to get reps in preaching, and also just just hone those skills. And so I did that throughout college, and then get to the end of my college career, and start applying or looking at what are my options here. And that's how I found out about the Bridge, where I'm at now.
Yes.
And joined their residency program, which is a phenomenal program. Came in working in pastoral care and with groups, and so amazing experience. Just how like the Lord led me down here in an area that I was familiar with.
Yes.
And so it's been cool. But I think even back to that time at like Wheaton, if I wouldn't have gotten rejected there, I never would have been here in Tennessee, because it was through the job board at Olivet, which led me here, which is like, it's so cool. And then just the connections beyond that the people I've met, the ministers that I've been around, and just the friendships I've made. It's been incredible.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how the Lord just leads and directs your
Yes.
step.
I just think it's beautiful to listen how God orchestrated every little detail.
Yeah.
Even when you thought, oh no, things aren't happening the way that I think they should, but it didn't deter you from continuing to pursue that inner thing that was really there from such a young age. And
Yeah.
and one other thing that was very interesting to me, I've yet to interview anyone who has not told me exactly what you did today, and that is someone else that spoke into their life and sort of was that revelation to them that, this is really what I believe God is doing in your life. And it's that endorsement or whatever it is, but God uses individuals in our lives to help direct us, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Well, I know that as far as your journey, you're in the very beginning of it. I realize that you haven't had a long time to experience, adversity.
Right.
The one thing I know for certain is there will be adversity, and you've probably faced a certain level of that because it doesn't take very long before we discover, even in our teenage years, that, life isn't always a high
Yeah,
for us.
100%. Yep.
But, I would like to reflect, and, if you don't really have anything you can point to, that's fine. But even in your time already that you've been following Christ and the call that he's given you, how has that call helped you to be resolute? In other words, when things aren't going as well as you'd like, sometimes
Yeah.
the enemy says, you don't have to do this, or whatever it is that he might tell you. But how has that call? Has it served you in the way of being resolute? Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, 100%. I think, getting into ministry, but even just in the life of the believer, spiritual warfare is a very real thing. And that looks different for different people. In my case, the enemy likes to attack the mind, and with accusations, lies, and trying to get me discouraged, or even, saying, you're never gonna see it come to pass. You're never gonna, you're never gonna complete. You're not going to finish well. You're going to, just he plays a vicious game, right?
Yes, he does.
So, and to kind of overcome that, and it is a kind of a constant battle. But I think just reflecting on the faithfulness of God, like how often I think back to that specific instance in that restaurant, but
Yes.
how the Lord has confirmed that over and over again through my own time with him, through time in his word, where
Yes.
I'll be reading, even this happened, this is probably back in November or something, but I was reading, it was in Second Timothy, and it's Paul exhorting Timothy, and I think that's it's beautiful. I forget what verse, I would love, if I had my Bible next to me I would, but he says something like, remember the prophecies spoken concerning you, almost like a reflect back on the faithfulness of God, what he's spoken over your life, what you're put on this earth to do.
Yes.
And so that, stuff like that has ministered to me, or there's a verse, it talks about doing the work of the evangelist. It talks within that verse, I wish I could reference it, but enduring hardship or enduring affliction. But finish, it's run the race,
Yes.
And so the word of God, that even in times past, Second Timothy, reading that back, it ministers to me, because I'm like, man, this is truth. This is not what I'm going through, is not uncommon, but it's what people call the ministry, and what people faithfully following Jesus go through.
Yes.
Is that pushback. And so, but the Lord, he's so good. There'll be moments where I'm feeling discouraged, and someone will just speak life into me and encouragement, calling out, saying, this is who God has made you to be. This is who God has put, this is what God has put you on the earth to do. And that's through my parents, that's through my friends, that's through other even ministers, encouraging me. And so it's stuff like that helps you to continue to keep on going. But even, I would say this, how do I want to say this? Almost functioning in the call. And in other words, there's moments where, related to evangelism, just 2 weeks ago, I was at In-N-Out Burger. Tennessee's got In-N-Out Burger now, which is a blessing.
That's awesome.
But then I was with my buddy, and who also has an evangelistic calling on his life, and we there's a group of guys next to us, and young guys around our age, and we're like, man, I love the evangelism. He's like, I just want to talk to these guys. We're so close to them, but I was like, I don't know. So we prayed a simple prayer, if there's an opportunity, Lord, would it, would you open up that door? And my friend had a Jesus shirt on. I forget the wording of it, but anyways, one of the guys strikes up a conversation. I like your shirt, man. Then it turns out he's a Mormon. He's part of the Church of Latter-day Saints. It was this amazing opportunity to share the gospel with him, prayed with him, speak life into him, speak truth, and it was so amazing just to see that. And so that's what gives me the most joy. And that's something that, like, that calling, or sharing the gospel, preaching the message of who Jesus is something that it almost comes, I don't want to say effortless in a prideful way, but it's
Right.
like, it's, you're operating in what you were made to do. And so there's
Yes.
this grace that the Lord gives you, to be able to preach his word, to share who he is. And then you just have so much joy. And so it's like another confirmation of
Yeah.
the calling. And it's something that you walk away, yes, you got to minister to that person, share the gospel, but you feel filled up, you feel encouraged because you see how the
Absolutely.
Lord worked through that. So there's multiple avenues, that I turn
Yeah.
to keep, like, fighting the good fight, and being faithful, and kind of countering that discouragement when it comes.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, you said so many good things there. I love the aspect of operating in the very area that God has gifted you, because, that's I think there's a natural aspect to this call, that many times God does call us to the very thing that he has most gifted us as
Hmm.
individuals to do. So
Yep.
that's a beautiful thing. You also were very privileged indeed to have Christian parents. I know,
Hmm.
there's the exact opposite. As a matter of fact, I just interviewed someone who came from a very underprivileged scenario in
Hmm.
comparison to you. And so
Yeah.
sometimes we exploit that when the truth is God saved you from an awful lot of bad things in your
Hmm.
life. That's for certain.
Yep.
But,
100%.
well, what a beautiful story. I love your passion. And
Thank you.
what would you say? What would you say to other young people who are just a year or two or three behind you and saying, man, I'm trying to discern what it is that God wants from me? What advice would you offer to them?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it starts, and this is an area I'm growing in, and by no means am perfect in, but I've just seen the fruit of it when I really lean into it, and it's creating space for the Spirit of God to speak to you. Getting it when you get in His Word. Like, there's just been, like I said, times where the words, it comes to life, because it is living, it's alive and
Yes.
active, sharper than any double-edged sword. And so when you turn to that, say, like, Lord, lead me through this. Like, as I read your word, as I spend time just listening for your voice, as I spend time in prayer, and just like, Lord, I want to serve you. I think that's what the Lord's, like, looking for,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
someone who has a heart to say, Lord, I'm going to say yes to you no matter what. And am I there yet? I'm growing in that, right? Like,
Yes.
there's areas of my life where I'm stubborn. I'm like, oh, I'm not always cooperating. But when I say, okay, I'm laying down my will here, right? And I think it's
Yes.
there's this posture we start with at our church every Sunday, but it's a posture of, like, open hands.
Yes.
And I think that's powerful. Like, before our pastors, they get into the message, they pray, and they say, I invite you to just, like, have this
Yes.
posture. And I think that's beautiful, because it says, like, I don't want to hold on tightly to anything, but I know that I want to be used by you. I
Yeah.
know that I want to walk closely with you. I want to have intimacy with you. And I
Yeah.
think, like, what I'm learning more and more is just, like, um, true ministry is fueled by intimacy with Jesus.
Wow.
um and, like, that's the fuel. When I'm lackluster in my scripture reading, or
Yeah.
I have a, just feeling off, oh my word, I'm a completely different person versus
Mm-hmm.
when I'm in his presence, and when I'm letting him fill me up, and then I work from that place. And so that's what I would say is, like, you're to the people who are considering ministry, or they're feeling this pull, is just say, like, Lord, here I am. Like,
Yes.
use me how you want to use me. And Lord, I want to be a willing vessel for you. And it
Yeah.
starts with that, just that simple. I know that sounds simple, but it's really that. It's that surrender.
It's
It's
the
that
surrender.
obedience.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
And just letting your, like, having that humility before the Lord, because
Yeah.
when you're being obedient, it's so life-giving. It's hard. It's difficult. Like there's going to be times
Sure.
where you doubt it, where you're frustrated, where you're like, I don't even know. Like, Lord, are you there? Hello? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, you
yeah,
pray those prayer like, Lord, I need to touch you. I don't know like what's going on,
yeah.
but it's so like worth it when you stay the course. And so like, yeah, just I would say to someone who may be a little bit younger than me, just have that posture before him,
Yes, yes.
and he's not going to lead you astray.
No,
That's
he
the thing
isn't.
too. He's gonna
Yeah.
like, yeah, yeah,
That's such good admonition. The surrender of everything to Him. Humility is a key component as well.
hmm
I appreciate you emphasizing that. And to be honest, Brayden,
yeah,
when I met you the other week, that was absolutely one of the character traits that stood out.
mm,
And it wasn't that it didn't even it was just almost like a first impression as I stood there and just observed for a few moments the
mm,
humility that seemed to be how you worked your life out through. It was just beautiful. And I am very, very happy that I got to meet you there at Nick and Reagan's wedding. And I just wish and hope for God to use you in a very powerful way. And who knows, you may be the next Billy Graham. And I know that's not what your motive is, but God will use you. I'm sure of that. And, I haven't done this on any of the other podcasts, but I feel impressed to pray for you today.
mm.
Would you mind if I did that?
I would love that. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Seriously.
Father, thank you so much for Brayden and for the life and the passion that you have instilled in him and the direction that you are taking him. And I pray, dear Father, that he will continue to live out the humility and the surrendered life. And I believe that you want to utilize his gifts and make his life to be a significant contribution into the lives of those that he comes in contact with. And I just pray that you will do great things through him in your name. Amen. Thank you so much, Brayden. What a privilege to have you today. Thanks for taking time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is a great conversation. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
I hope the stories of the call to ministry will inspire you. Please take a moment to like and hit the share button as we prepare for the next episode.